Wits University's SRC has sent a memorandum of demands to the institution's vice-chancellor ahead of registration for the new academic year. Some students have allegedly received offer letters but are now unable to register because of a lack of space. There have also been issues around students with historic debt, a recurring problem in South Africa when they're unable to register because they have funds outstanding from the previous year. The SRC President of Wits University is Aphiwe Mnyamana, who's with me in studio tonight. Aphiwe, a very good evening to you. Thank you for coming in. Let's start with the issue of prospective students whom you say have now been in touch with you. So they received offers but are now unable to get space to enroll. What happened?
Good evening to you, Tembegile, and good evening to the viewership. What's happening here is that Wits University has received over 100 applicants and we can only accommodate 6,000 students. So now there's issue of space constraint. Just to give you an example, like saying, we are driving a 5-seater car, then you invite 10 people to a road trip, hoping that 5 of them will decline. And when all 10 of them come back, you tell them you do not have space. So there are students who have received offers specifically from the Faculty of Sciences, but they cannot enroll because the institution is telling us that there is no space. And we as the SRC, we do not understand how is it that you have sent out offers to students saying they can come to Wits, and now when it's time to register, there is no space. And I don't think this is an administration problem because administration has money to run their processes smoothly. For every applicant who applies at Wits, they pay 100 rand. So imagine 100 rand times 100 applicants. There is 10 million to run administration of offers. Now the institution is saying to students who have applied for sciences, go and check for spaces in humanities or in CLM. And we are saying as the SRC, all students have received offers from Wits institution. They must come to campus and they must be registered by the institutions.
Register and then do what? If there's no space, you can't create it tomorrow, can you?
But there was an offer. There was an offer to say come. So the institution hopes that other students will decline their offer, other students will go to other institutions. But then all students have accepted the offer and they want to enroll, but they are told there is no space. So we do not understand, how do you send out an invitation when I'm coming to the dinner, you're telling me there is no space?
But tell me, the ones who have now been accepted versus those who had received letters saying that, you know, were provisionally accepting you, I think that's how it still works to this day. It's not a confirmed space, is it?
It is provisional acceptance,
yes,
in grade 11. But once you receive your matric results, then it becomes an offer, a firm offer.
Okay. So were they turned down in favor of the university taking people who performed better in matric? Is that what happened?
No. There are minimum requirements which you must meet to enroll for a course. And those students have met those requirements and they have outperformed those requirements. Hence they got an offer. But now the institution is saying we cannot accommodate you because most of the students have enrolled in these degrees. How the system works is that the institution hopes and prays that other students don't accept the offer. Maybe they'll go to your UCT, to your student portion and whatsoever.
Or they simply don't turn up.
Yes, but then students turn up and they're saying there's no space.
So what then is the solution up here? Because if, let's say, Wits has accepted the maybe thousands more people than it has space for, and now we're sitting in February, registration has to start, where do the people go? Where do these students go? Because if there aren't enough lecture halls, there's no space for them. What needs to happen?
Firstly, what we are saying is that it is not my responsibility, it is not my duty. You have sent out an invitation to say, come over, and I've come. Accommodate me. You cannot, logically speaking, you know very well that for humanities, you have 500 students which you can accommodate, and you send out 1,000 offers. What do you expect to happen to the other 500? So what we are saying is that doors of learning must be open to all students who have received offers, and the institution must make space. We have been through COVID, and there are things such as online learning. There can be a rotation. We can explore online learning for those students whom we are saying do not have space, but they must be accommodated. As long as they've received an offer, there must be a place for them.
And this is a unique situation to Wits, Aphiwe.
It happened last year.
Does it only happen at Wits?
I don't know with other institutions. Probably it happens in some institutions, but people do not voice it out. Because even people who were working around enrollment, they were told, do not raise these things with the SRC. But there was a line in my office on Friday. Parents were crying, students were crying. I come all the way from Eastern Cape. I've received an offer to study at Wits, and now you're turning me down. Today, as I'm speaking, there's a student who wants to commit suicide because the entire community knows that the student was supposed to go and study at Wits. But Wits is saying, I do not have space. I've over-enrolled. Whose fault is it? We have 10 million budget to run offers and administrations of first years.
So when this happened, you said it happened last year as well. How was it resolved then, and why has that not been implemented now?
It happened last year under Humanities. We called the management and we told them that we have sent out offers, accommodate students. Even this year, that's the same thing which we are saying. Everyone who has an offer must be told that he must come back to the institution and study.
It speaks, though, and I'm not in any way now going to hold a brief for Wits. It speaks to the general issue around space versus the number of bachelor passes we produce every year, right? Because even the Higher Education Minister, Blade Nzimande, last week after the matric results came out was saying, the matriculants who've been successful must look towards vocational training, which is fine, but not everyone wants to do that. But people are being steered in that direction precisely because universities in this country aren't creating space fast enough to accommodate the growing number of students. So there needs to be a holistic overhaul of the system.
I do agree with you. If you can see the demographics of Africa in general, I think Africa is one of the continents which has more young people. And in South Africa, we have about 26 institutions to cater for these young people. I do believe that the government, the NC government, I think has only built 3 or 4 institutions. It must build more institutions. We were told, I think in 2018, that they will build 2 new institutions in Ekurhuleni, but nothing has happened thus far. And if you can imagine, from 2002 up to 2021, the GDP which the country spends on education is 6.6 as I speak. So it means as a country, we are not serious about education and young people. There must be more institutions. And if we are saying some students must go to TVETs and vocational studies, we must make TVETs and these vocational technicons to be acceptable to these young people. Because when someone gets his or her matric results, he's told you have a bachelor pass. And the bachelor pass says you must go to a university. So that's the issue we're having, the issue of space and the seriousness from the government to cater for young people. I don't think out of 100%, 6.6 is spent on education. The GDP in 2002 was 4.5. As we speak right now, is 6.6. So from 2002 to 2023, the increment was 2.5. It shows that there is no agency in catering for young people in this country.
So you're concerned in the main about these prospective first-year students, but you're also, in your statement, raising an issue around registration for people who are studying last year, the year before, who this year, because of outstanding debt, may not be able to register. How many are actually affected and what's the issue?
Okay. To speak on the number, roughly 14,000 students won't be able to come back to Wits and register. Because the institution is saying, if you are owing, you must pay 50,000 of your debt. For example, you are owing 100,000. He's a student from Soweto, from Gwagwa, must pay 50,000 now in January. Tell me, which black students
are they being required to pay the full bill?
Half of your outstanding debt. And what you are saying as an SRC, it has happened before. There are students who are owing 150,000 and less to come back and enroll. Because I don't see logic in this thing. I'm a final year student. I am owing 100K. Let me register and finish my degree so that I go to work and pay back the bill. You enter in university as a student who doesn't owe. You enroll for modules, you enroll for courses. Fees are high. Fees have increased by 5% at Wits. So we have issue of fee increment, which affects us as black students. So what happens to a black child? Let me tell you. You enter an institution. With good results, we are not owing. And when you are about to exit, we are owing roughly 100K, 300K.
The sad reality, though, Aphiwe, for those students is, while it sucks that they're unable to register now,
yes,
what sucks even more is that for many of us who go through the university system, even after you graduate with an honors or even a master's, we sadly live in a country where employment is not even guaranteed. So they would still have massive debt nonetheless.
I do agree with you. Employment is not guaranteed as a young person. And another issue which we are facing as a country, I think the unemployment rate for youth people is really high, and nothing has been done. We are told that we must create jobs, we must be entrepreneurs, and there's a load shedding. How do you become an entrepreneur while there's load shedding? For example, let's say I go and open a car wash in Soweto to expect people to come and wash their cars. For 6 hours, there's no electricity. So who can come and support my car wash if there is an issue of load shedding? So load shedding is another issue which we are facing in institutions. Let me tell you, for example, at Wits, we spend 150,000 per hour just for our diesel so that the institution can run.
Okay.
So if we have stage 6, it means then 900,000 is spent on load shedding. And what you are saying as an SRC, that the Department of Higher Education, it has happened in Nazareth during ANC conference. Not John said, Nazareth, there must be load shedding exemption because they are ministers and whoever and whoever. We are saying as Wits SRC, the Department of Higher Education and Training must then exempt institutions of higher learning from load shedding because it costs them money to pay for those generators. And who pays the fees? The student pays the fees.
Right, we're out of time, but I want to go to the last line on your statement where you say that students are being urged to be vigilant and militant. Are you then preparing them to go on strike, and how long before that possibly happens?
I was in the meeting with the vice-chancellor just before I came here, and there's one thing which I told him. As student leaders, we are not inherently violent. We do not like to cause chaos. To go to a protest, it is very draining, and it needs energy and power. So what we are saying to Wits institution, if they do meet the concession which we have proposed in this statement, then we're going to have a smooth year. That's what we are saying.
How long before we know that the issues have been resolved?
The Vice-Chancellor's office is meeting on Monday. The senior executive team is meeting on Tuesday. By Wednesday, we want feedback from the institution. And
registration, when does that start, and when are lectures supposed to begin? Because especially in first year, it's crucial that you be there from day one.
For first years, it's easy for first years to register. They do not have outstanding debt, they have bursaries and NSFAS. And another issue which we have been spoken about is NSFAS. But we are opening on the 24th of February, and registration have begun. But for returning students, that's where our crisis is at.
So on first years, I was talking to the issue of those who you say the university now has a responsibility to accommodate, and it can't tell them there's no longer any space available. What is the VC saying? Is the VC saying they can do something?
I've raised this thing with the registrar of the institution, and I've raised it also in my statement. So from tomorrow, what you are saying as an SRC, students who have received offers from Wits institution, they must come and they must be registered.
Aphiwe Mnyamana, Wits SRC President, thank you for coming in tonight.